Hey cousins, welcome to episode 3 of He's So Over Me. Baby! So today on episode 3 of He's So Over Me, we're going to be talking about how we saved our marriage.
What happened to it?
I was finna leave your ass.
You ain't finna go nowhere.
I was finna leave you with these children.
No, you wouldn't.
And be on an island somewhere.
Yeah, right.
I want to talk about a universal truth in our marriage, because there's an understanding that Chris and I have. I think this is something that we've always agreed on. It's just been a part of our relationship, what we believe, and how we move in our marriage. Baby, what is that universal truth that we have in our marriage?
Do the wheels fall off?
Yeah, that's one way to say it, till the wheels fall off. But I like to say it more so that we don't have deal breakers. What does that mean?
Never leave.
What song is that?
Well, you.
What song is that?
No worries. See, we already off because you started. That's what.
So I've had this conversation with many people on what does that mean when I say we don't have deal breakers. Now, I want to be very clear. When I say deal breakers, I'm talking like I'm not going to leave because I wake up one day and I'm tired of him, or he wakes up and he's tired of me, or that spark just isn't there. It just doesn't feel the same. It's a marriage. You're going to have hills and valleys, ups and downs. Or I think that there's something better out there for me. Like, no, we said till death do us part and we're going to make this thing work. But I also think it's important to remember that we both want to make it work. So this is not a dig at anyone that's ever gotten a divorce, because if one person is adamant about putting in the work and doing the work and your spouse is not, you can't work in a partnership as a team by yourself. But because Chris and I have made the decision to always work in a partnership, to work together, to tackle all of our problems as a team, that is one of the reasons why I say we don't have a deal breaker. Because if we wake up one day and we don't like each other, we are both going to put in the work to fix that. If we wake up one day and that spark is gone, we're both going to put in the work to fix it. If there's just something not going well in our marriage, we will both put in the work to fix it. That's not to say that if he or I ever cheated and it was a persistent thing, like I feel very confident in saying, if my husband cheated on me, I would not leave him. That does not mean that if he continued to cheat on me and it just became a part of who he was, that I would not leave. I think for me, the only thing that might cause me to actually pack a bag and step foot out of this house with my kids is if he were to put his hands on me, which I know that he would never do. First of all, my husband is 6'2", 200 plus pounds. I am 5'1". It don't matter how much I weigh. I'm 5'1". So him putting his hands on me would be a big deal, not just because he's a big man, but because he is a man in general. I am a daddy's girl. I grew up with my father in the home. He is still very much active in my life and my kids' life. And I can count on one hand how many times he may have spanked me. And it was always followed up with a conversation, with and I love you.
That's why you're so spoiled.
With and I love you. This is why I did what I did.
You should have got more whoopings.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's your problem. You need more whoopings.
Whatever.
You should have got more whoopings.
And not only that, on a serious note, I have been in a physically abusive relationship. I was engaged to a man that did put his hands on me. And that is something that I said I would never deal with again, because it was one of the scariest times of my life. So with Chris being my safe space in the way that he is, I feel comfortable talking to him about anything, bringing anything to him. If he were to break that trust and make me fear him, I don't know how I would come back from that, because I've never been fearful of my husband. So if he ever put me in a position to where I feared him, I don't know how I would come back from that. But we say that we don't have deal breakers because the average obstacles that you may face, the typical obstacles that you may face in a relationship, are not deal breakers for us. And I don't know how Chris feels about the whole cheating thing, but I personally would not leave my husband if he made a mistake and he cheated on me. If it were something to where I felt like he was doing it over and over again, or I caught him multiple times, that would be a different conversation. But how do you feel about that? Is cheating a deal breaker for you?
No, no. I come from. I grew up around long marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Parents were married 49 years. Would have been more. So I'm just not used to seeing, you know, marriages kind of break up like that. I didn't grow up around that. Everybody we were around, just back then, that's just how our family was. Because old people didn't talk about their business a lot.
They did not.
So I knew my parents were married. I knew their friends was married. And if there were problems, we didn't, as kids, we didn't hear about them. You
Mm-hmm.
just, when you chose to get married, that's who you're supposed to be with
Mm-hmm.
forever. And that's just how, I was lucky enough to grow up around an environment kind of built like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I wanted my marriage to be. And then when we met and we talked, we went to the church that grew us,
Mm-hmm.
and we went through what we did and made sure we had the foundation that we wanted to help us, you know, do it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
And so though things like that can't be um, deal breakers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say stuff ain't gonna happen or things ain't gonna be hard. Life is hard,
Right.
especially when you want to spend it with the same person
Right.
forever. But you make that choice, and if that's what you want to do, then you try to do what's required to the best of your abilities. And we come to those agreements when we first got married, and we continue to compromise and grow and deal with your crazy attitude.
Whatever. So, this portrayal of perfect relationships on social media, do you think that it can make people second guess what it is that they have, this portrayal of all these beautiful, perfect relationships?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do that. You do that shit too.
Do what?
Compare. And I think
Mm-hmm.
anytime you compare, or try to compare your race to somebody else's, then that'll kind of throw you off your own track.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that happens to everybody that's on social media. I mean, I don't never really compare my marriage, but I might compare other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like damn, we was always on vacation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we always broke.
We've been working our ass off, and we need a vacation. So yeah, sometimes it's
But
hard when you're looking at other people's relationships and you are comparing it to your own. And I think one of the ideas that I had to a hurdle that I had to get over is understanding that the grass is not going to be greener on the other side. If for whatever reason there's something that I'm unhappy with Chris about, I'm not going to find the answers or what it is that I'm searching for in someone else, because every relationship has a honeymoon phase, and during that honeymoon phase everything is great, it's butterflies and it's lovemaking and everything feels good. But then what happens when it's time to put in the real work and the honeymoon phase is over? And so I have just come to realize that if I'm going to do the work that is required to be married to someone, to have a partnership, then Chris is the one that I want to do that with. And I'm willing to go through the ups and downs to ensure that that happens. And I have to get out of this idea of perfection, because no one is perfect. And the moment you expect perfection from someone, I think you've already set yourself up for failure. So that's one of the reasons that I always say, I never say that neither one of us will ever cheat. Like, it's a dream idea that sounds amazing, but I don't put those expectations on either one of us, because although we are in a committed relationship, Neither one of us are perfect. And if he ever slipped up or if I ever slipped up, that would not cause either one of us to leave each other because we made a mistake, if that makes sense. It's definitely something we would talk about. We would have to have an understanding of what caused you to want to do this, why it happened, and then we would do the work that's required in our marriage to make sure that it doesn't happen again or to fill those voids that were missing that caused this situation to happen in the first place. So that's one of the reasons why I say we don't have deal breakers, because again, every relationship, that honeymoon phase is going to dissipate at some point, and you will have to put in the work that's required to create the relationship that you want. If you're just expecting for everything to stay at the height of that honeymoon phase, then you may not want to be in a relationship. Or if you do, but you're expecting everything to stay at the height of that honeymoon phase, I believe that you'll find yourself jumping from relationship to relationship, looking for that feeling, because it does fade. That doesn't mean that it doesn't ever come back, right? But it fades, and then there's more work required to get you back to that point. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, there has never been a time in my 13-year marriage where I felt like, I don't know if we're going to make it, with the exception of one time. There was one time where I was literally ready to throw in the towel.
What was that?
Oh, I was ready to throw in the towel. And honestly, I feel like you were too.
What I do?
You don't remember what it was about?
No.
Money.
Oh.
Money.
When we always argue about money.
We don't argue about money, but when Chris and I first got together, he was a save. First of all, Chris is still a saver. He's a saver, an investor. He, when it comes to money, my husband is frugal. But that's one of the things I love about him, because I could not be with a spender. In my opinion, two spenders don't go well together unless you just have an abundance of money and that's just how your life is set up, then have at it. That's not how our life is set up. We have 2 children, multiple properties that we own, and we are building our business from the ground up. We don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, so everything we're doing, we're figuring it out along the way.
Falling forward like a mother.
Falling forward. And we want to make sure that we have a successful business to leave our children so that they don't have to work for anyone in the event that they choose not to. So a lot of our money decisions go towards things that will happen in the future for our children. I am a spender. Chris is not a spender, but I've gotten better throughout our relationship because of the things that he's taught me. But money has been the only thing in our relationship that made me actually say, like, well, I can have my account and you can have your account, and we don't have to do this if you don't want to do it.
Your ass was finna be broke.
We could go our separate ways. My spending ass. We could go our separate ways. Like, we don't have to, because aside from, I know infidelity is a top reason for divorce, money issues, if I'm not mistaken, money issues is the number one reason for divorce in America, with infidelity being number 2. So
nobody want to be broke.
Nobody wants to be broke. So that was a big deal for me. We just could not get on the same page with what was going to happen with money. I wanted to pay down all the debt, and Chris was like, well, no, we're not putting all of the money that comes into the house on debt. We can put a percentage of it. And we just couldn't get on the same page with what was going to go on with the money. And I'm like, I go to work every day. I work hard. You're not going to tell me what to do with my money and what I can and can't do. And so it was such a big deal. I remember Chris's parents came down to visit us from Houston, and they had to get in on the conversation. And they were like, wait. Y'all not going to be hollering and cussing and going at each other like this. It was a little heated.
I don't be cussing like that.
No. It was probably me. It wasn't you. It was me. My attitude was 10 times worse than it is right now.
You do got a shitty attitude.
I've gotten better.
A little bit.
Haven't I? Thank you for the kudos.
A little bit.
But it was bad to where his parents had to say, like, hey, y'all are going to have to get it together, because we've seen too many couples divorce over money, and y'all can't let that happen. So Chris and I had to get on a strict budget. We had to agree with what was going to happen with the money, what wasn't going to happen with the money, how much is okay to spend without letting the other person know. I think we started off with, this was when, I had first started working, and we were really trying to learn more about how money works. Our limit was $50. Anything over, if you were going to go and do something, but it cost more than $50, we had to consult with one another. Like, hey, babe, I saw such and such, and I think I want it, but it's $80. We had to have a conversation. And as we got older and our money increased, then it increased to, okay, you can get what you want, but if it's over $100, we need to have a conversation about it. And then
to $50.
we need to go back to $50. So it just increased as our incomes increased. But money has been the only thing in our marriage that made me say, yeah, I don't know if we're going to see eye to eye on this. But money was the only thing that made me wonder, like, are we going to be able to figure this out?
If I'm going to have to do these, can I get another mic? Because I don't want to hold it all the time.
I'm going to get the floor mic that just leans over and you don't have to.
Okay. How much is that?
$200.
Oh,
I'm
gonna just, you can't just,
you want
a stand or something?
I might be able to, but until you want to hold that one, or you want me to go buy the $200?
I'm gonna hold it.
Okay. And so
$200.
frugal. It's okay though. That's why we're gonna use these little mics until we can get some other mics.
Some ads or something on the show, sponsorships or something.
So, baby, when we're talking about making sure couples are on the same page, let's say we have couples out there that are having a hard time in their marriage, whether they are dealing with financial issues, whether they're dealing with infidelity, some personal issues, childhood trauma, just things that they have not gotten over or gotten past, and it is impeding on their relationship, and it is keeping them from propelling forward in their relationship. Can we talk about the power of tough conversations with any of those situations? Because whether you're dealing with infidelity, finances, childhood trauma, any of those things, how can tough conversations be beneficial in situations like that? Let's talk specifically to the couples that are having issues with getting on the same page with finances. What would you say that their first step needs to be?
They need to talk.
Okay.
And figure out where they want to go in life. One time we had a conversation with one of our financial mentors that kind of seemed to be in a place financially we would want to get to. I think that was one of our best kind of conversations where we kind of realized what we wanted and what we needed to do to get on the same page. Initially, we had that whole bump where we kind of got into it, and my parents had to kind of chime in and stuff to get us on the same page. That was earlier, but once we kind of went through some things on our own, and the more people we met, the more exposed we were to certain things, we realized what we wanted to do, and we found another set of mentors where we had that second conversation for 3 hours, where we basically had to come to the realization of what we wanted our life to look like specifically, and what that would require. Those conversations are hard because sometimes you just end up just living life and you haven't really planning anything out to realize where you want to go with your spouse, and start to see just from being around other people that if you're not headed in the same place with your spouse, it makes doing life together very hard,
very difficult
if you're going in separate directions. And
which is why I think Chris and I have built so much together as a couple. I know I've actually had conversations with people that say, well, cheating is a deal breaker for me. For me, it's just not. With the amount of things that Chris and I have built together, it's just not. Especially if we're talking about a mistake. You know what I mean? I'm not throwing away my entire marriage, everything we built, the relationship we have with our kids, over a mistake. So I think the more skin you have in the game, which is why I feel like, now I'm not saying it's right because I don't think it's right. You see these stay-at-home moms that are doing all the things they want to do, and they vacation, they do this and that, but their husband cheats on them persistently. But they ain't going nowhere. They know what he do. Just don't pop up to my house. I'm not saying that that could ever be me, because I'm gonna fight him and her, them. You know what I'm saying? But I understand when you've built an empire and you've built something with that person, how you wouldn't allow a mistake, you throw all that away. Now, like I said, persistence and consistently doing something is totally different. I think the power of tough conversations is what got us through when I was feeling like, I don't know if is this really what I want to do? Like, are we going to always have these issues with money and how money is spent and where we putting it and where we saving it and how much we contribute into this or that? Like, is this really something I want to have to deal with all the time? Having those tough conversations, regardless of what the topic is, in my opinion, a game changer for what can get you and your partner through. The building process is not sexy, regardless of what you're talking about. If you're building back trust, if you are building an empire, if you are working on your finances, whatever you may be working on, the building process is not sexy. It's not cute. It requires a lot of work, time, dedication, and two people that are on the same page. But you can't get on the same page if you're not having a conversation about what's going on. And in terms of finances, that looks like laying all your debt on the table, laying how much you make, your ideas around money, how much you want to invest, how much you want to save, what type of house do you want to live in, looking at what is required for that, how many vacations do you want to go on a year, what type of schools do you want your kids to go to, lay out what your perfect life would look like. And then y'all have to really dive into what is required for us to get to this, what we wrote down on this paper. And it'll change your mind about the way you move and how you look at money, how you spend money, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, because it's going to require sacrifice to get to that number that you wrote on your paper and to get to those ideas of what you want your life to look like. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. For some of you, finances is not your struggle. For some of you, infidelity is your struggle, or childhood trauma, abuse. But I truly believe that if you are in a relationship with someone and any of these things are your struggle, I believe that everything starts with the tough conversation. You have to lay it all out on the table. What the problem is, where it stems from, how it started, how it makes you feel, how your spouse can contribute and help you through so that you all can work together as a team. And sometimes you don't know where the problems stem from. It's just trauma that you've grown up with since you were a child. So I think it's important for you to be able to find the root cause of whatever your problem may be, because if you don't work on your individual problems, they will become team problems with your spouse. If you have something that is plaguing you or eating at you, at your spirit, at your soul, something that has been weighing down on you, and you don't handle that, it will become a problem within your relationship. So everything starts with tough conversations. Everything. Like, one of the things that I've said to my husband, if there's something that I'm lacking before it gets to that level of infidelity, I will tell him, like, hey, we have not been having sex enough. Or, when I go out, I'm finding that people looking at me and I'm looking at them and I like it and they like it. And I don't want to be attracted to that type of attention. I want to only get that attention from you and within our marriage, but I'm lacking something, whatever that something may be. And you and I need to have a conversation about it. We need to work on it. And he'll say, okay, well, let's talk about it. We have a conversation about it. Because at the end of the day, he is my forever and I'm his forever. And we're going to have those conversations. If there's something that I'm attracted to, I have to be able to tell him, like, hey, I know that this is what we used to do, but I don't like that anymore. Or I'm finding that I'm attracted to this, or this particular thing or idea is turning me on, and this is something that I want us to explore. I can have that conversation with him. It doesn't mean that it may not bruise his ego a little bit, but I think you would rather I have the conversation with you than to not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather know about it than not know about it and shit get out of hand or something like
Right.
that. So Gotta. I like that you're kind of super transparent,
Extremely.
and you're not. You don't really hold your tongue. Like if it's how you feel, it's how you feel, and you're gonna tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just depends on the mood you in, how it gets delivered. I take it how I take it however it come, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and we move from there.
If you are working on preserving your marriage or your relationship and the connection that you have is avoiding compromising situations. And I will be extremely transparent and say this is not something that I have, I guess, been good at. Avoiding compromising situations because I'm such a friendly person. And so for me, I think, anyone that I'm in regular contact with, like, oh, they're my friend and they want to be my friend
You
and they're a
think
good
everybody, you
person.
think everybody cool.
Unless you just outwardly show me that you have a bad spirit or you're a bad person, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Chris don't give nobody the benefit of the
I
doubt.
don't trust
He don't
no
trust
nigga.
anybody. But I think that that's important to have in a spouse. I'm this free butterfly that just floats around, and he is very much not that way. So he has protected me in a lot of situations where I may not have seen the danger myself. What should couples do when a situation or a relationship crosses the line into dangerous territory, whether they have crossed the line in terms of communication and now they're communicating more often, or things are now not as innocent as they initially were? What is your opinion on what the next step should be if their goal is to preserve their marriage and to be with their spouse forever, but they find that they are in a situation where boundaries are potentially being crossed with someone that is not their spouse? What is the next course of action?
They gonna have to have one of those tough conversations again and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
What they should
Because some
do.
woman might tell her man that he might go upside her head.
Probably shouldn't have married that nigga.
I
So
agree.
don't you tell me.
Mm-hmm.
You told me before it got to a boundary that you couldn't come back from, a
Mm-hmm.
line that you couldn't come back from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is necessary. So you have to have that talk because as long as nobody knows and you hiding it, then it's easier to do
Mm-hmm.
because then it's nothing but you know your conscience and nobody's telling you something is wrong because nobody know and
You got to have that accountability
yeah,
piece.
and you don't have it if nobody knows. So by telling your partner, you know, really the only person that would hold you accountable. I mean, your friends probably hold you
Mm-hmm.
accountable, but they can't make you do nothing.
Right.
We have a relationship where not that we make each other do things or
But my desire
have
to make you
control.
happy and make us work would require me to
Yeah,
do
we
certain
submit
things.
to
Yeah,
each
we
other.
submit to one another.
So it's different to hit your spouse with it and let them know before things go too far, and then it's even harder to come back from it, or you can't come back. That might be a deal breaker for that person's marriage,
Mm-hmm.
whatever line you might cross or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Um,
That has always been helpful for us, whatever situation we're in. If conversation goes too far, you have these feelings like, I'm really enjoying talking to this person. I will tell Chris, like, I have had old friends from the past that were there before Chris came along that just I always stayed in contact with. And whether they wanted to have more conversation because they had things going on in their life and they wanted to talk. And then I'm noticing that we're starting to talk a little bit more than normal. And I could see how this could either one be looked at in the wrong way, or because we have history, it could turn into something that it shouldn't. So I'm going to put a stop to this and I'm going to have that conversation with my husband. I did have to say, hey, this person that was a childhood friend of mine, but I could see how, because of the history that we have, could make conversation easy, and how the conversations could go on and on and on. And I don't want to have that dynamic with another person that's not my husband. That emotional attachment. I don't want to have that with someone that's not my husband. So we had a very long, hard, detailed conversation about it. And he was able to help me through that situation. So that's the power of partnership.
Yeah. And I think for most of the stuff we do, we've made a habit of having an open line of access for everything that kind of happens. At this point, some of it's kind of funny, and we laugh when it happens, or when she goes out and somebody might say something inappropriate, or they'll DM or something inappropriate. Look at this nigga. Look at this nigga.
I'm gonna always show him. If you send me something, like, I'm going to show my husband.
The stories are funny. I think she looked forward to my stories sometimes. I'm not an inviting person like you unless you like truly know me. So
yeah,
I don't really leave. I don't
room.
even want to.
You don't leave
deal
room
with
for
none of
it.
that. So
you don't leave room
I don't think
for
nobody's
it.
even comfortable enough to that I know to even if they felt that way, they would never.
They wouldn't tell you because you're an asshole. You'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Don't you know I'm married?" Like that's something he would say.
So I don't, because I don't want to. But it's not that I'm scared, but it's a good fear to it's a good thing to be fearful of some stuff, and it's not that I'm afraid of you, but I'm afraid to hurt our relationship, and I'm afraid to do anything that, even though you say I'm not gonna leave ever, like I still don't want to do no extra fucking work to fix
come
that
back
shit.
from.
Like,
Yeah,
you just see, we know people, bro. Like,
yeah,
we've heard testimonies from people who have went through lines or crossed lines, or spouses crossing line where they had to work to put their marriage back together. And I'm already tired. I don't want to do no extra shit, to fix something after I made a mistake. Like, so I just rather not even leave an opportunity to deal with that shit, because I'll be tired already trying to keep up with your crazy ass. I don't want to. First of all, I don't even have time to. I don't like talking on the phone. I just don't have time. We got too much going on. I'd be tired. I don't want to do no. I do not want to do that. Like, hang around some people that have been through the fire to save their marriage. Like, stop looking at the perfect marriages and talk to people with real marriages, not the fake shit on Instagram.
Yeah.
The real, it's people with real marriages that have put in work to make sure that they do life and stay together, and they went through real stuff. When they give you their testimony, you will realize, I don't want to go through that shit.
Don't want to go through it. Before we hit our rapid fire and get ready to end this episode,
why we gotta do rapid fire every time?
Because I like it. Chris and I have gone through individual therapy to deal with our own individual problems. We have also gone through.
I went through individual therapy.
You have.
Yeah.
Dr. Baker.
Why
we have all.
You can't say that kind of stuff. That's supposed to be confidential information.
I'm violating HIPAA?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. We have also gone through couples therapy whenever we feel like we need it, or we feel like we need a tune-up. It's nothing wrong with Black folks going to therapy. Go to therapy and get yourself together.
You need to go all the time.
I do. Gone are the days where we hide all the generational curses and everything that's going on with us and just pray about it. I need Jesus, but I need a therapist too. Okay. So
you do.
I do. Rapid fire. What's the hardest thing about marriage? Don't think too hard.
Trying to reach our financial goals at the same time as keeping you happy.
It's hard to keep me happy.
It's like when we have a meeting and you be like, okay, we finna do this, this, and this, so we gotta save money and we can't do this. And then you be like, ooh, look what I seen, baby, can I buy this? And it's like, can't. Yeah, I mean, we just had the talk the other week about what's finna come up, and then you be like, "Can I get this?" I'd be like, "You could, but should you?" And then I'm gonna just say yes because I don't want to tell you no. Like that's like the hardest thing. Like I guess for a husband, like
because you want to make your wife happy.
You want your wife to be happy. Like, oh, I want to take a trip. Well, what you mean everybody finna turn 40? We can't go to everybody's everything. That's very hard. So
okay. What's one thing I do that drives you crazy?
do a whole bunch of things
Tell
that
me
get on my
Tell me one
nerves.
thing.
I mean, it's not a specific little thing. It's just you have an attitude problem,
Mm-hmm.
and your face changes.
Not that this is an excuse. But I do have anxiety. So when I try to plan things. So when things happen and I was not expecting for it to happen, I get anxious.
Automatically get an attitude.
So my anxiety shows up
I don't know
as
the difference
irritation.
between anxious and attitude.
Yeah,
you get an attitude.
My anxiety shows
you just
up
be
as
angry.
Irritation, frustration. Sometimes I may cry or my hands may get sweaty. My anxiety shows up in different ways.
I just care about the anger and the attitude.
Who's better at communicating, me or you?
You.
I agree with you on that. Who's more romantic, me or you?
Both of
them. You are.
I mean, that's because it seems like you might put romanticism inside of like the actions that I take for certain things because I'm good at like
you're good at planning
gifts
and gift
stuff
giving.
Like that and
you're definitely
gestures.
More, yeah.
But you do more of the
I'm
like
more touchy-feely and
feels.
I'm more physical and touchy.
That's a word now.
Feels. I'm more feely. I'm more touchy-feely than he is, but he is much more romantic than I am. This was episode 3. He's so over me.
I'm reading.
Mwah.